They lost everything defending the love you kept questioning. Their silence isn't indifference. It's the price of protecting your name. You'll never know what they endured unless you feel it in dreams. They stood in rooms that mocked your name and never bowed. No one saw their bruises, only you were worth bleeding for. They begged heaven to keep you, even when you vanished. You think they forgot, but they chose battles over comfort, just to hold your spirit. Every "I'm fine" was a sword through their ribs. They fought demons in your name, and you still wonder if they cared. The betrayal wasn't yours. It was what they had to endure loving you. The world told them to leave. Their soul said stay. Not even God could convince them you weren't the one. They cried in bathrooms after defending you in crowds. You were the reason they stopped running, and the reason they broke. Their loyalty outlasted every lie told about you. You weren't a mistake. You were the war worth surviving. Everyone whispered, "You'll regret them." They whispered, "I'll regret letting go." They knew the cost of loving you, and still paid in full. When they said your name, even enemies trembled. They don't talk about you. They pray about you. You left. They stayed fighting shadows just to keep your scent alive. You were always the battle, and still they chose you. Every scar on them has your initials in invisible ink. When others mocked your pain, they made it sacred. They didn't lose people, they lost illusions. You were the truth. You weren't their type. You were their prophecy. No one clapped when they defended you. They didn't need applause. Behind their silence is 1,000 arguments they won for your name. You think they walked away. They were dragged. They burned bridges you never even saw to make you feel safe. They loved you in front of those who hated you. Their loyalty wasn't loud. It was violent in silence. If you ever loved them, you'd know they never stopped choosing you. They didn't lose the fight. They lost you. They erased people just to keep space for your spirit. Your name was a prayer and a battlefield. Every goodbye, they said, was meant to protect your return. You were their weakness, but also their sword. They wore your heartbreak like armor, not shame. They didn't love you perfectly, but they fought better than most. They didn't want to witness. They wanted your soul safe. When no one believed in you, they offered their breath. They heard every insult about you and still bowed to your name. The war wasn't just theirs. It was for the future they saw in your eyes. They let the world call them fools, so you'd never feel alone. Love doesn't always protect. But they tried. My God, they tried. If you only knew who they lost, just to keep you sacred. They had nothing, but still offered you everything holy. You'll feel it one day, the ache of a love that fought unseen wars. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. They bled in secret, so your name could remain untouched. They whispered your worth to God when no one else saw it. You'll never see the bruises, but your spirit caused them. They were mocked for loving you. Still, they never denied it. They stayed quiet while your enemies screamed. That's sacred strength. Their love was a weapon, and they never stopped wielding it for you. They didn't need a reason to fight. You were enough. The pain they carried wasn't theirs. It was the storm around your name. You'll never know the lies they crushed, just to believe in your truth. They buried parts of themselves so your light could rise. When you disappeared, they stayed arguing with heaven. You were always more than a person. You were a soul assignment. They heard the worst about you and still called you holy. They bled internally so your name could walk freely. They knew what it would cost and still paid the toll. They gave up ease, not you. While others mocked your faith, they fasted for your breakthrough. They were the quiet intercessor in your storms. They stood alone against multitudes, just to say you mattered. They never asked you to change. They just asked you to stay. They were mocked for believing in you, but they never lost faith. You're alive today because someone kept fighting when you didn't see it. They kissed your pain like it was prophecy. They broke generational cycles trying to reach you. They didn't want recognition. They wanted your redemption. The love they gave was war paint. They weren't loyal to your image. They were loyal to your soul. They didn't lose you. They surrendered to what you couldn't yet become. They weren't perfect, but they never made you fight alone. You may have left. They never stopped kneeling. They didn't need a sign. You were the calling. While others gave up, they kept choosing you in silence. You never thanked them, and they never needed it. They battled your demons like they were their own. They took lashes you never even felt. They bled behind closed doors while protecting your name in public. Their voice was never loud, but it carried your defense through realms. They stayed up nights, negotiating with heaven for your healing. You were hard to hold. They built strength to cradle you. They read your pain like scripture. Even now, they carry you in unspoken prayers. They turn their back on safety, just to walk into your storm. Their faith in you cost them friends, family, and comfort. They didn't regret it. They regret you never saw it. They fell apart in silence while holding your name like gold. They were loyal even when their soul begged to let go. They cried out for mercy, not for themselves, but for you. Their heartbreak was sacred. It carried your resurrection. Their fight wasn't loud, it was relentless. Their hands trembled, but they still held you in prayer. They watched you self-destruct and still chose to cover you. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to save you. Their silence wasn't absence. It was protection. They stood between your enemies and your innocence. They fought for you in places you'll never know. Even when you cursed them, they blessed your name. They walked into rejection just to shield your truth. You'll remember them in your hardest hour. They didn't wait for a miracle. They became one. They fasted for your peace while you partied. You thought they disappeared. They became your covering. They never needed credit. They needed your restoration. They cried into pillows what they couldn't say out loud. They buried their pain just to water your future. They weren't your past. They were your unseen war angel. They fought without weapons, just faith and love. You gave them silence. They gave you intercession. Their pain had your name carved into it. Even their goodbye was an act of love. They walked away so you could walk freely. You'll never know how much they lost just to keep believing. They weren't trying to fix you. They were trying to save you. Their strength was forged in the fire your love lit. When you stopped fighting, they started fasting. You left scars. They left prayers. The world made them choose, and they still chose you. Their loyalty was forged in warfare, not comfort. They risked ridicule to defend your name in sacred places. Their absence isn't rejection. It's the mark of someone who gave too much. You'll see they're worth the moment someone doesn't fight for you. If this touched your soul, don't scroll. Like, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. They bled in silence so your name could remain sacred. Their loyalty was a battlefield no one ever saw. Every scar on them carries the weight of your love. They fought your battles you never even knew existed. When the world turned cold, their heart burned for you. You were the war they chose, still undefeated. They stood alone against storms just to protect your peace. No one heard their cries. Only God witnessed their fight. You were the reason they kept fighting in the dark. Their prayers were shields when enemies whispered your name. They carried your pain like armor, unbreakable and fierce. You left. They stayed, guarding the sacred space you held. Their silence screamed the fiercest love you never understood. Every "I'm fine" was a battle wound hidden deep inside. They fought not for glory but for your soul's survival. The world doubted them. God called them faithful warriors. You were worth every bruise their spirit silently wore. They bargained with heaven, asking only to keep you safe. Their loyalty was an unspoken vow etched in blood. They held your light when darkness tried to devour it. You were the battlefield. They were the unwavering soldier. They chose love over comfort, no matter the cost. Their heart broke silently so yours could keep beating. They fought every shadow whispering lies about you. Their love was a war zone no one wanted to enter. They kept faith when hope felt too heavy to hold. You were their fight, their prayer, their holy resistance. They stood firm while your enemies whispered doubt. Their soul a fortress built on your name alone. They burned bridges to build a path for your return. Their love was a silent war cry heard only by angels. You were their purpose. They were your unseen defenders. Every sacrifice they made whispered your worth in heaven. They held space for you when no one else did. Their faith was the fire that kept your love alive. They walked through storms just to see your light again. You were the battle they chose, the victory they prayed for. They loved fiercely when love felt impossible to hold. Their devotion was a sacred war fought in quiet rooms. You weren't just loved, you were fiercely protected. Their strength was forged in the fire of your love. They carried your name like a sacred prayer on their lips. Their heart's war was fought for you in silence and shadow. They chose you over every fear and every fall. Their love was the battle no one else dared to fight. You were their sacred mission, their unyielding fight. They shielded your soul when the world sought to break it. Their loyalty wasn't loud, but it was relentless and true. You were worth every wound they quietly bore. If this touched your soul, don't scroll. Comment your favorite quote and subscribe for more. They wore your heartbreak like armor no one could see. Their prayers carried your name when you had none left. They stayed, even when the world begged them to leave. You were the war they never wanted, but always fought. Their love was a shield against every whispered lie. They bled quietly to keep your name unblemished. You never knew how fiercely they defended your soul. Their faith kept the door open when you wanted to close it. They stood in your storms so you could find calm. Every fight they chose was for your heart's survival. Their loyalty was a sacred fire that never died. They defended your name when others traded it for gossip. They held your light when darkness tried to snuff it out. Their love was the battlefield where angels whispered victory. You were the reason they never surrendered to the night. Their silence held more battles than words ever could. They fought for your peace even when you ran from it. Their heart carried your name like a secret prayer. You were worth every wound they hid beneath their smile. They chose to stay when leaving felt easier than fighting. Their devotion was the sword that cut through every lie. They loved you fiercely in a world that taught them fear. You were the war they never walked away from. Their strength was a quiet rebellion fueled by love. They prayed for you in the silence of their pain. Every sacrifice whispered the depth of their sacred love. They stood guard over your heart with holy ferocity. Their faith in you was a battle won before the war began. They loved you when love felt like a war zone. Their loyalty was an unbreakable vow written in the stars. You were their sacred mission, worth every fight and fall. They bore the weight of your absence like a holy burden. Their love was a fortress built on unwavering faith. They held you when the world tried to tear you apart. You were the war they fought with every breath. Their devotion was a quiet storm reshaping your destiny. They stayed, even when every road led away from you. Their prayers were the armor that shielded your soul. They loved you fiercely in a world that doubted your worth. You were the battle that forged their unshakable strength. Their heart was a battlefield where only your love won. They carried your name through every storm and silence. Their loyalty was a flame that never flickered or died. They fought for you when everyone else gave up. Their love was a sacred war no one else understood. You were their reason to fight, their reason to hope. They stood for you when no one else would. Their strength was born from the depths of their love for you. You were the sacred fight that defined their soul. If this touched your soul, don't scroll. Comment your favorite quote and subscribe for more. They fought your battles silently so your spirit could soar. Their love was a war waged with holy patience and pain. You never saw the battles they fought just to keep you safe. Their prayers were weapons sharper than any sword. They carried your pain as their own without complaint. You were the reason they never backed down from the fight. Their loyalty was a sacred vow written in their heartbeat. They shielded your heart from storms no one else noticed. Their love was fierce enough to withstand any war. You were their battle and their blessing all at once. They held your soul with hands bruised but unbroken. Their faith in you was a war cry echoing through time. They fought for your peace in the silence of their prayers. Their love was a fortress no enemy could breach. You were worth every sacrifice they ever made. They bore the scars of a war fought in love's name. Their loyalty was a beacon guiding you through darkness. They stayed when the world told them to run. You were the reason they never gave up the fight. Their love was a silent battle no one else saw. They stood guard over your heart with unwavering devotion. Their strength was born from the fire of loving you. You were their war and their peace, intertwined. They fought for you when everyone else turned away. Their love was a sacred fight written in the stars. You were the battle they chose, the victory they sought. They carried your name through every storm and shadow. Their prayers held your soul when you couldn't hold your own. They loved you fiercely, even when love was a battlefield. Their loyalty was a flame that burned through every doubt. You were their sacred mission, their unyielding fight. They bore the weight of your absence with quiet grace. Their love was a fortress built on faith and fire. They held you close when the world tried to tear you apart. You were the war they fought with every breath they took.